Previously on Podcast Without Pretense. That's a good point, Iyaz.
I mean, chicken is really just an adjective when you use it that way.
It's true. Chicken can be an adjective. We learned and laughed a lot in the last episode. Iyaz lost his voice, which is why he was silent in that entire part. I'm Jonathan Strickland.
I'm Eric Sandine.
And together we are 2/3 of the most interesting man you'll ever meet. Especially since the Dos Equis guy has retired, right?
That's
and
true.
now the competition has seriously dropped off. How you doing, Eric?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. We were talking just before we started recording that today, as we record this, it was the first day of Google I/O. Have you ever been to one of those, Eric?
I haven't been to I/O, actually.
Yeah.
Which was weird because I was just thinking about it today because I was like, wait a second, I could have gotten tickets to that. I work with 5 Google engineers. Why didn't I do that?
I've been to one. I can't even remember what year it was. It was a year where you didn't get any cool stuff. Like every other.
Do you remember the free shit you got?
Didn't get any free shit. Yeah, no, that was one of those years where it was in between free shit. Which was, it kills me because I sit there and look at some of the other ones and everyone walks out with like a Chromebook or something. And
Yep.
I mean, granted, depending on your view of a Chromebook, you're like, free? Come on.
That initial
worth every penny.
CR48, I got one in the mail. I used it for about 3 weeks.
Yeah. It reminds me of the netbooks, that had that brief moment in the spotlight. And then everyone realized what shitty machines they were. I have one somewhere. It barely works. No, I went when there was no free shit to give away. But I did get to see Flight of the Conchords play live because they played the Google Party.
Nice.
And that was kind of fun. Yeah.
That's like the random... When I went to F8, the like entertainment was churches, like randomly one night. I love the... Actually... Man, I would have rather seen Flight of the Conchords. But
Flight of the Conchords was fun. They did my favorite song of theirs, which is called Jenny. That's my favorite. Do you know that one?
Yeah.
It's just a super long conversation. Yeah, that one's great. But they were a lot of fun. They were very self-deprecating, partially because out of all the people who were there were maybe 75 of us sitting around and listening to them play, and everyone else was in this massive auditorium.
Was it?
And tons of people were playing with like VR stuff and everything like that.
Was it at Moscone Center or was it somewhere else?
It was at Moscone. Right. Yeah. And I had a great time, but I'm obviously not there this year. I'm still at home. But I watched the keynote and because I reported on it for howstuffworks.com, just that site.
Yeah.
And that was there were some interesting things. I thought I liked what I heard about Google Home, despite the creepy vibe of having technology in your house that's constantly listening to you.
I'm so 50-50 on it. Like, I was reading through like a couple of people talking about it, and one guy made a good point, which was when I was little, I always dreamed that I would be able to just like say things and have them happen. Like turn on the lights or like be like, what is the square root of 650 or something like that?
Or I want pizza.
Or right, but then there's the other half of me that's like, wait a second, I don't want something listening to me all the time.
Yeah, especially something that is going to be taking more and more data and using it to build out a more and more robust dossier on all the things you like, so that the ads you get in the future will be more and more targeted to you as a person.
Right.
I go back and forth on it too. I have a feeling, I haven't talked to my wife about it at all yet, but I have a feeling that she would. Huh?
Did you sign up for the mailing list? Because I did.
Yes, of course I did. Like literally as soon as the URL popped up, I went and signed up for it.
Yep.
If I'm not one of the first like 5,000 people to have signed up, it would shock me. But I don't kid myself because I know that video feed had to be on a slight delay, and Although hopefully all the people in that audience who are using their phones were experiencing the lag that you generally get when you are in a group like that. But no, I signed up for it immediately. I haven't talked to my wife about it. I have a feeling she would be a little more reticent to adopt it than I would. Which is odd, right? Because I'm the one who's got the quote unquote public persona. Right. And you would think that I would be trying to protect my privacy, what little I have left. But really, my wife is a much more private person than I am. So we'll see. I don't know. And if she's dead set against it, of course, I'm not going to go for it. Yeah. But I like the idea of it. And I like the potential it has to work with other apps and stuff in ways that could be really interesting.
Well,
like the Chromecast integration stuff.
The interesting point about that, though, is Google has said that they're not going to open up the API to third parties directly. So anything that it works with is going to have to be Google approved initially because it's a private API, which is actually kind of one of the reasons I don't like it. Because like if I have that device sitting there, I want to be able to like plug in whatever I want and have it it should just be able to interface with like IFT. And then I can control whatever the hell I want.
On the flip side, though, Eric, we were just talking about privacy concerns.
Right.
You wouldn't want there to be some sort of Yeah, you want some sort of control in there so that you don't have someone creating a malicious app that is just a surveillance app with like some hey, you can order flowers and I listen to everything you say all the time. It would be the
potential for malware abuse is a bit high when it's a 24-hour always-on microphone.
and obviously that would be a huge detriment to Google as well, right? It'd be a huge black eye to that company. So I understand why they're going that route. In fact, I agree with it. I agree with you somewhat because I think when you get technology, it's fun to be able to really play with it and see what it can do and make it your own. It is not great to be in a world where more and more of our tech is stuff that we have access to but don't actually get to own per se because the content lives somewhere else. That's
and that's and that's a good point too. Is like you're gonna buy they haven't announced the price. I don't think is it $100 some odd speaker that's Wi-Fi connected or whatever, but it's functionless unless you agree that it can analyze everything you say.
Yeah,
like
it's fine.
Which is weird.
I've been married 20 years, dude. I've had everything I've said analyzed for 2 decades now. So, and reinterpreted to mean things I didn't intend for them to mean, and then held against me. I love my wife.
Sounds like home.
Yeah, exactly. I've got to. I'm never going to call my wife a Google Assistant. I'm just going to back off from that right now. I've already had too much fun at her expense.
We're getting close, but you could probably ask her to order you food at some point, and she'd probably do it.
She's actually bringing me food right now. In fact, I'm gonna have some Caribbean and Cuban cuisine this evening, so I'm looking forward to it. But I like the idea of Google Assistant and Google Home in particular, but Google Assistant just is kind of neat. And I like the idea that they've used their natural language processing so that you can continue to go down a path of questions and it will understand within the context what you mean when you start using pronouns so that you don't have to just talk like a robot.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting with so one of the super nerdy things I was actually super excited about at I/O this year was actually the what are they calling it? The TPU, the tensor processing unit. So they pretty much built their own ASIC chip that's really good at tensor modeling, which is super exciting. I want one, and they're rolling it into their cloud, which is actually awesome. Because doing like TensorFlow models is like super intensive, and it takes a lot of processing to train things. But using like the new ASIC that they rolled out, which I think is like 8 times faster than running it currently, is kind of awesome. Because we like at my job, we actually kind of use things like that because we have a lot of people talking all the time, right? So I work for a language learning startup, so we have a lot of people talking, and it'd be really great to actually be able to analyze that fast. Which actually the TensorFlow modeling, the new ASIC, like it's super fast, and I want like 10 of them under my desk. But yeah. I mean, it's funny because IO like always like kind of disappoints me because they announce a bunch of things that they're like, well, you can't use this now, but you'll be able to use it. So like that's why like one of the only usable things rolled out today was the beta for Android N, and I was like, yeah, sure, I'll brick my phone. It didn't brick my phone, and it's great. But
that's good. Yeah, I started that process and then backed away slowly.
Yeah,
I already broke and replaced one phone this year. I'll tell you the announcement that had my stomach sink was the announcement of Daydream and the Daydream Ready phones, because it was only a couple of months ago when it may have been last month when I bought the Nexus 6 to replace my previous phone, which it was the only time I have ever shattered a screen on a phone. Out of all the phones I've owned, it's the only time.
You know what I will say? So
What's
I
that?
currently have a Nexus 6. Its screen is shattered, and my previous Nexus 6 screen shattered. And both of those were like pocket level drops onto medium hard floor, like hardwood. Yeah.
Gosh.
Just
see in my case
with a bumper.
Eric, yeah. here's how your life is different from my life. I shattered the screen on mine. It wasn't a Nexus 6 that I shattered. I think it was the Nexus 5, because I hold on to phones for like 2 years before I upgrade, which is why I'm a little I'm a little irritated, because I'm like, when Daydream comes out, it'll only have been 6 months since I had bought my phone. Yeah. And my dog is barking in the background. I apologize for that. But so I don't really feel the justification to buy a new phone, despite the fact I would love to play with Daydream. But no, what happened to my phone? So I was in Renaissance garb.
Wow. All right.
It's a great way to start that story, right? So it was for the final rehearsal, or maybe second to last rehearsal, for the Georgia Renaissance Festival, when I had stepped in to play that part where the guy had gotten hurt, so I was stepping in for his. So I'm wearing his belt because it had the accoutrement for me to have a sword and dagger and all this kind of stuff, and he had a pouch that was big enough to fit my phone in. So I had my phone in the pouch. What I did not realize was that the way my pouch was swinging on my hip, it brought it into contact occasionally with the very tip of a dagger sheath, and the tip was coated in metal. So it's a leather sheath with a metal ball joint type thing at the end. And so when I walked, the pouch would swing and tap against my leg, and the sheath behind me, because a dagger was behind my lower back, so you'd reach around and pull the dagger out and go, ha ha! The tip hit my screen just right, and it was just the right kind of tap to create the spider web starburst pattern. Yeah. And I broke my phone. So
I don't know. The Dream, what are they calling it? Dream something?
Daydream.
Daydream. Yeah, so the reason I'm kind of excited about it is because, so sure, we'll have the Daydream like devices. But the cool thing about it is that I'm sure that, so like everybody right now is using Unity to develop lots of 3D games because it's the easiest platform right now. So once Unity has, plugins for Daydream, it'll pretty much mean that like now, instead of building a game specifically for like Oculus or the Vive or whatever, you'll just have another plugin. So it's just another platform people can target to push it out. So it's not that like Daydream will necessarily need a better device, but it means that the developers will have an easier time and a better marketplace, so they'll develop for other things as well. So you'll probably be able to use it on multiple different devices because a build target in Unity is relatively easy to do.
It just won't be. It just won't be optimized. Like the question is whether the sensors built into the phone are going to have the proper sensitivity for really good head tracking and that kind of stuff. But I'm excited to try it out. I like the idea of having a VR platform that is more economically accessible than the stuff that you would get on the market right now, because you'd have to have a monster of a machine since everything else has to be tethered to a PC, with the exception, of course, of Sony's, which will be tethered to a PS4. But it's a big investment if you want to get into the VR game right now, from a consumer angle. So something like a phone is a much easier way to access it. Of course, the challenge there is to make sure that the experiences are fun, immersive, and free of as much latency as possible, so that you don't end up giving VR a bad name again, and we end up with the same problem we had in the 90s when everyone was like, oh, that's what virtual reality is? It sucks. So,
yeah, I mean, I think it's I think it's kind of hilarious right now, because we're at a point where there's lots of people who are like, VR, I don't get it. And there's lots of people who are like, no, this is going to be a big thing. We're just like we're at the NES. Well, no, I can't say that. There was an NES version of VR, but we're at the NES version of VR right now.
Well, and also, I mean, I think a lot of the people who don't get VR haven't had a chance to experience something like the Vive or the Oculus in its current form, where if you do have some time with it, you start to pick up on how special it is, especially if you're playing. Like, if you're playing a game, like, as dumb as it is, if you're playing something like Job Simulator, it's so ridiculously, it's such a dumb game, but it's so much fun. And it's fun because it allows you to experiment and try to break the game. And it's phenomenal to find out how much shit the developers actually thought of ahead of time.
Well, it's also, so when so I've been like slowly introducing people to VR, like as possible for me to do so. So like started with Google Cardboard, and now I have the Gear VR, and eventually I'll probably have one of the high-end headsets. It'll happen. But one of my favorites on the Google Cardboard was not necessarily showing people games or anything like that. It was showing them 360-degree like video narratives. There's one on the VR where you're touring a refugee camp in Syria.
That was a National Geographic one, I think.
Yeah. And so it's interesting because you can like tell people about VR and they're like, whatever, but like you also have to figure out what to introduce them with. So there's lots of people that I've shown like that video, and they're like, oh shit, like this is amazing. Like the ability to convey a story like that really well, especially when you have somebody relatively isolated with stereo sound and you can look around and things like that, you can convey a lot of emotion.
It is challenging because you have to be able to set up something where at least the majority of directions that a person can look in are interesting to look at. So it presents itself with some unique challenges that you don't have with other types of filmmaking, right? Like with filmmaking or shooting any kind of set type stuff, the camera ready side looks pretty good. And then anything that's outside the view of the camera looks like a regular room or a warehouse or concrete or whatever. And you can't do that with the 360 stuff. I mean, you could if you wanted to show people what it looks like on a set and give people that feeling of, all right, so here's what the crew would be doing. Here's what the cast would be doing. That's kind of interesting, but you can only really do that once.
It's definitely hard to do. I was talking to a production guy the other day who does video production, and he was like, I'm really interested in it, and I'd love to do a story with it, but how the hell do you edit that thing? Like, how do you, like, what do you do? Like, you don't have a 2D timeline, you have, a full view that you're editing, and it's definitely a huge challenge, but I mean, there's a good market in making the tools for that. I mean, definitely doing narrative work is going to be super hard. There's only a few actual live narratives I've seen, and usually they're not full 360 degrees. They're like, they'll only go out like half view, so 160 or whatever. But yeah, doing it in 360 would be super hard.
One of the ones I saw, one of the earliest ones I saw was from Pixel Whipped, which is doing ASMR videos. And they did a 360 ASMR video.
ASMR videos.
Yeah, well, ASMR videos are big, right? Like ASMR is big because not all the triggers are just audio triggers. Some of them are like visual triggers, like especially stuff where people are doing things with their hand, like they're reaching toward the camera. And you're like, I'm touching your face. I'm touching your face. This is a lot more effective if you're watching the video. I'm touching your face. And I'm not making fun either because I watch the shit out of those videos. I find them very relaxing. They help me kind of unwind at the end of the day, and I fall asleep very easily. And I've got a friend who's an ASMR artist. So, and she was actually one of the ones in the 360 degree video I watched. And I watched it and I thought, this is really clever. I think you could come up with some really fun ways to use this. Right. It does present some challenges. Like if they were shooting on a closed set, and then you're thinking, like, well, how do you light this in such a way where the lights themselves aren't in the way or visible or taking you out of the experience? So yeah, there are a lot of, and it's the kind of stuff that people who haven't had a whole lot of experience on the production side of things might not necessarily think about. But as someone who has worked in video long enough, even on the on-camera side, I just immediately start thinking like, well, how would you do X? Or what happens if you need to light something?
I think that part is super interesting. And that's fun because it's a new challenge for everybody to figure out how to do. Like building a set for a flat video, we've pretty much got that down at this point. Now we need to build something for somebody looking at 180 degrees of video or 360 degrees of video, or
right, which is great news for set builders.
It's true. God, so much money. You're gonna have to build 100% more. 100% more set.
Well, I just sit there and I think about every play I've been in too, where anything facing the audience was finished, anything not facing the audience wasn't, and it's the same sort of thing, right? It is a really interesting idea. It's also something that clearly CGI is going to have a huge advantage over live action, simply because you can construct that virtual world much more easily.
Well, and that's so CGI has a huge advantage, and also just like documentary filmmaking has a huge advantage. Like actual live video. We'll probably see those two things accelerate first, and then eventually the kind of live experiences will kind of catch up to that. Or the studio experience, I guess. Yeah.
I could see some interesting stuff like going back to the Renaissance Festival, because I always do, even when I say I'm done. Just setting one up in like the jousting field and watching the knights ride by would be kind of cool, just to see like the speeds at which people are going, being able to turn your head and seeing what's happening. That kind of stuff I think about, or like anything that involves a large open space where a lot is going on, setting up for a festival or a concert. I actually thought, I shot this video for How Stuff Works about how the WWE experience works. So it was all about setting up the ring and everything. That would be cool to see in 360 degrees. Like you can actually see what all the different crews are doing at the same time. The big challenge there is that they typically construct the stage on one side of an arena floor, and then when they lift the lighting rig off the floor, they push the stage from that side over to where it will actually be for the show, which means you wouldn't have any
filming, you'd have to carry around a lighting crew with you, and yeah.
Well, or you'd have to physically remove the camera at some point, because otherwise it would just be in the way of the crew. So some things, like, you'd have to figure out other creative ways to get, like, it might just be a cut, right? You might just be like, all right, that's a cut, and then you have to come back after it's gone by and explain what has happened. But
you fade to black and come back, it's fine.
Yeah, people are used to it.
Yep.
But yeah, I like the idea of it. I haven't seen anything where I thought it was the killer app for that yet, but then I haven't watched the Refugee documentary yet. So I knew it existed.
Good. Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, if you have a cardboard laying around, it's free. It's on Verse, VRSE, I think.
Okay.
That one's really good. And then they have another one. They had another one, which was just like, it was walking with a Black Lives Matter protest in Manhattan, and that was done by the New York Times. So you have like a first-hand like point of view. So it's interesting. Like, I'm really interested in people's ability to tell those kind of stories, because it's the easiest way to do. It's the easiest way to do 3D video right now, because you just get a camera, film it, and maybe you have a narrator talking you through it or whatever. But it's a good way to plop somebody in an environment that they're never going to see, or not necessarily never, but that they haven't seen before,
right?
And
they get the full picture, not just
involved.
When you get the opportunity to look around and see what's going on, and not just be slave to whatever the camera person has in frame, that's a big difference, right? Because you're no longer thinking, oh, I'm just seeing what they wanted to show me. You're thinking, I'm seeing everything that's going on.
Right, everything around me right now. This is what it is. That's super interesting.
I realized, Eric, we've got a problem. We're having an episode of Podcast Without Pretense that actually has some substance to it.
It happens, yeah.
Whenever one of us is gone, this is the shit that happens. So, with that in mind, since the last time we gathered together, no, we're not going to talk about.
I didn't watch the movie. Yeah,
you haven't seen the movie yet. Yeah, we're not gonna talk about it. We're not going to talk about it anyway, because Iyaz isn't here. The wedding was love. The movie was Love, Wedding, Marriage. We're not going to talk about Love, Wedding, Marriage yet. I did watch it, so you're going to have a blast.
Yeah.
Love, Wedding, Marriage. It got a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is lower than Rock and Roll Frankenstein. But yeah, I look forward to hearing your thoughts on this film. It's nowhere close to anywhere. It doesn't even have a remote resemblance to some of the worst movies we've watched. But it's not good.
I'm interested.
I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on it. So, but we're not going to talk about that right now. Have you seen any other movies since the last time we chatted? Like, did you watch Captain America: Civil War?
No, I did not.
No, it's actually pretty entertaining. I think that
that's what I heard.
Black Panther and Spider-Man in particular came out of it really well in my mind.
I didn't watch anything. I did find a random new comic that is kind of ridiculous that I've enjoyed, and I will set up the plot for you very quickly. It's called Sex Criminals. It is about two people who meet and have sex and can stop time. So apparently,
I have heard of this.
They stop time, and then
they rob banks.
They decide to rob banks, and so I was walking around a comic book store the other day, and I looked at that, and I'm like, of course the title catches you, because you're like, what is this about? Is this a really deep comic book actually about sex criminals? Because also possible. And then I picked it up and read the back, and I'm like, oh, well, this sounds fantastic. This really sounds fantastic.
I heard about that. I heard about that comic probably several months ago, and I thought the same thing. I was like, "This is an amazing premise."
It came out a while ago. The first volumes are out. I think they're on issue 15 now, so I'm like catching up through the volumes. But like the first one is definitely crude.
Yeah.
But it's entertaining. There is a long comment in one of the volumes about how they couldn't secure rights to a certain song, and so the writer had to just write in comments as if they had rights to that song and what would have happened. But it's pretty entertaining. I'm enjoying it.
I'll have to check it out. I remember being intrigued when I heard about the premise. The only thing
but it's all right.
Yeah.
And the art's good.
I saw Civil War, and apart from that, the only other thing I can really comment on that I've watched recently, I just watched the Goosebumps movie because it just showed up on Netflix.
Just posted that, right?
Yeah.
So
it's okay.
There was a Goosebumps. Was there a TV show? I don't.
There was Are You Afraid of the Dark, which was very similar in theme to Goosebumps.
I think of that as the Goosebumps TV show. Yeah.
My dad wrote some of the books in the children's book series, Are You Afraid of the Dark? Because they had some books as well. Yeah, my dad wrote several of those. But
there's a possibility I read some of your dad's books then. It's possible.
It's a certainty. It's a certainty that I've read some of my dad's books.
That's true. Yeah.
Because I remember doing it.
Yeah.
Goosebumps was cute, but the best thing for me was recognizing locations. Like, oh yeah, I know where that is. There's one moment, like it's the kind of stuff that pulls you out of a movie, though, right? Because when you recognize a location, you're like, oh, that's not really there.
Oh, like me watching Breaking Bad the entire time.
Yes. Yeah. There's a sequence where the two young characters, high school aged characters, actually I think they're in their 20s, but they're playing high schoolers. They're walking down a street next to a little stone wall, and there's a park like woods on the other side of it, and the girl is leading the guy to a location she knows of and ducking down into this park. And it's Candler Park, which is right down the street from where I live. Like, I walk my dog there. And what's hilarious is they duck down into this park and they're then in the woods. Like, the movie's supposed to be set in Delaware. They're in the woods, and then
Atlanta looks like Delaware.
Yeah, Atlanta. We look like Delaware. So the girl leads the guy through the woods to an old abandoned amusement park that never actually opened. Like they had built it, but the company went bankrupt, and so it was never finished. But it's still wired for electricity, and with a flip of a switch, all the lights come on. So
of course.
As I watch this, I'm like, well, holy shit! I wish that there were an abandoned amusement park in that, right? Because it would be a 10-minute walk from my house. I could just walk there and go to an abandoned amusement park. That'd be awesome. But it's literally just a tiny little park. Like it's a decent sized park. Like there's a big area for kids to play like soccer and stuff, and there's a little playground and things. But the part where they show it, where it's supposed to be entering into the woods, is the smallest section of the park. So to me, it was just also entertaining to watch two characters go into a forest from where I knew there was like 12 trees. Right. But yeah, it was fun to see that. And then there's lots of sequences that are shot in a neighborhood it is my neighborhood. It's like 3 streets over from where I live. So that was kind of fun to watch that too. The movie itself is cute, but largely forgettable.
Who are the famous people in it?
Jack Black.
Because there's
Jack Black. Jack Black plays R.L. Stine.
Oh, all right.
There's a cute moment at the very end where he's walking through a high school, and the real R.L. Stine walks by, and he says, "Hi, Mr. Stine," and then Jack Black says, "Hi, Mr. Black."
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cute.
So the other thing that I was bored the other day in Berkeley. That's why I was hanging out in a comic book store reading all of the comic books. But not like I wouldn't do that. But the other thing that was interesting is Scooby Doo is coming back out, and the art is awesome. And there's zombies apparently. but I don't know why there are zombies. I don't want there to be zombies in Scooby Doo.
Yeah, right. Like you find out
Scooby Doo versus zombies. That's kind of what issue 1 comes out, I think, next week.
Well, you always want to find out that the supernatural creature in a Scooby Doo story is actually someone who's orchestrating things for nefarious purposes.
Number 1 with zombies is just a ton of people in makeup that they end up killing. Like they're zombies.
Shaggy has shot and killed 37 innocent, well, not innocent, but 37 human beings in makeup with headshots, double tapping because you got to be sure. Oh man!
At the end, they finally find one and like wipe off the makeup. That's just the end of the run, the end of the series.
It's issue 2 through 60 is just Shaggy dealing with being incarcerated in a maximum security prison. like
the
Shaggy
trial and tribulations of Shaggy.
Yeah, getting an occasional visits from the rest of the gang and trying to avoid getting shanked.
Right.
I'd buy that series.
Scooby, he was us, and
Scooby don't. Well,
I was pretty
I think we just probably wrote a better Scooby Doo comic than you can expect to get. I mean, if the art is great, that's awesome, but well, and the reason, in case you've been tuning in this whole time and you're wondering where's the third guy, Iyaz is relocating from one apartment to another one that's like a block and a half away from where he lives now, and so he's moving,
shuffling things one block away.
I found out that he was not going to be available to do this because I tuned in on his live stream. And he mentioned that on Wednesday he was going to move, and I'm like, really, Wednesday? And he's like, oh. So Strickland's finding out right now that I won't be recording podcasts without pretense again. 2 weeks in a row. If you're wondering why we weren't on last week.
I caught the live stream after it happened, I think, which made me sad because I wanted to throw random questions at him. But
the question I asked was, who's your favorite podcast without pretense co-host that isn't Eric or yourself?
That's why I'm sad I missed it.
Yeah. It's fun to manipulate people. I mean, I get it too, right? When I do live streams, like people who are commenting on my live streams, it's clear that they're trying to get me to do things like either say hello or do something stupid. And you realize ultimately that if you start doing that, all you've become is a digital puppet. And you're like, I'm not here just for your amusement. I'm also here to inform you. So shut the fuck up. Yeah. It's the price we pay for being on-screen talent.
This is my only on-screen talent show, so
that's fine. It can be fun. Don't get me wrong.
I don't do 30 hours of video a week. Actually, do you have a number for like the most content you've actually like produced in a week, like the actual like cut video out?
I can tell you. I mean, here's the thing: for every minute you see on screen, there's probably at least a half hour for a flawless minute. It's at least an hour or half hour of work. So for an episode of Forward Thinking. The old ones took multiple hours. Now we've gotten to the point where we can actually get a 4-minute episode done in about 45 minutes. So we have got, because we do 2 takes. If I'm on the ball, and I don't have a teleprompter, it's me and the crew. If I'm on the ball and we can get 2 good takes in, that's probably about 45 minutes. I have shot 8 episodes of Forward Thinking in one day. It was brutal. Absolutely brutal. Somewhere around episode 6, I start to pray for death. It's impossible to hold on to information at that point. Because think about it. Every single episode of Forward Thinking is about 4 minutes long. Somewhere between 4 and 5 minutes. Yeah. Every single episode of Forward Thinking is essentially a 4-minute long monologue, because there's no one else but me, about highly technical stuff.
Yep.
A 4-minute monologue is hard for an actor to do. To do 8 4-minute monologues about highly technical things is insane.
Well, and I'm sure eventually, I'm sure your brain just goes into like test taking mode too, where it's like store this for 20 years, and then 48 hours later, it's all gone.
Oh yeah, no, I have figured out that when I research and prepare for podcasts and videos, I've got about a 2-week period while I'll still have that information readily available in my head. And then after that, it's gone. So it's a constant rolling 2 weeks of where I won't say I'm an expert on anything,
what does
but I'm
Jonathan
informed.
know this week?
Right.
Yeah.
So this week it's all about the Kepler telescope findings from last week. I've got that still. That's still up here. I've got the Google I/O stuff that pushed some other junk out of the way. I've got some stuff about some image recognition stuff, some voice recognition stuff, fun things. But it's usually for about 2 weeks, and then after that, like, it really fades quickly. And if you to the point where now when I pitch ideas, I have to go back and look at the previous episodes to see if I've already covered it, because I don't remember it off the top of my head. So
that's like, that's like writing code. There's code that I wrote a month ago that I look at and go, what the hell just happened here? Who wrote this? Yeah. Oh, I wrote this. Well,
and I've got more than 750 published episodes of tech stuff. And after doing more than 750 episodes, it can get really easy to start researching a topic, get that antsy feeling deep in my stomach, go and search and find out, oh shit, I've just wasted half a day because I recorded that show 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And
would that be so bad though? A fresh take after 750 episodes isn't that bad.
Sometimes I'll do updates. Like there are certain ones where I'm like, yeah, this warrants an update. I did a 2-parter on or maybe it was a 2-parter on Nintendo. Back in 2011. So I did an update from what's happened since 2011. And that kind of stuff is easy. Some of the other tech is a little harder. Like if it's a basic technology thing, like what are the basic principles behind a microprocessor, for example?
Right.
Well, that doesn't change. So,
nope.
So there's certain things where it just doesn't make any sense for me to do it again. But that doesn't stop me from trying occasionally till I do a search on my RSS feed. I'm like, oops, I can't do that.
And you have to search through your own RSS feed. That's the most amusing part about it.
Yeah, because I don't have
RSS feeds. So Google Play launched podcasts a little bit ago. I use Google Play Music for the subscription. We're on there apparently, which is great. You can search for Podcasts Without Pretense. We show up mainly due to
you can also search for tech stuff and forward thinking, and I know tech stuff is in there.
If you felt like it. Those are educational. So
I don't know if my other show, Large Nerdron Collider, I don't know if that one is on there or not. I'll have to look it up. But I think I submitted it, but I don't remember if it made the cut.
I just randomly searched for it, and I was like, oh, wait. I didn't do anything, and now we exist here. This is amazing.
I also exist on Amazon Video Direct now because How Stuff Works was a launch partner.
That's
with Amazon.
I have not even used that yet.
If you go to Amazon Prime and you do a search for How Stuff Works, we'll pop right up. So I'm on like Brain Stuff and What the Stuff. I'm only on a couple of the shows that are on there. Forward Thinking is not part of it, and Tech Stuff isn't a video show, so that one doesn't show up on there either. But I do show up in some of the other stuff, so you can actually watch me on Amazon Prime now, or Amazon Video. You don't have to be a Prime member to watch it, although you get it for free if you do.
We need to get there. We need to. Podcasts Without Pretense must be able to be subscribed on everything for no reason.
According to our producer, at least episode 150 would be banned from all
possibly decent
platforms. We were told that we had to get double special explicit on episode
Double
150. I don't anticipate that love, wedding, marriage will require that kind of a tag. So I think we'll be able to get through that without being too profane.
If it's that bad though, it might. Because there's just,
I will say
pure
there's
anger comes out at those points. The problem is
I don't know. I don't know if it's
forced us to say words that we didn't really want to say.
I don't know that it's that bad. I think it's just that mediocre. Like remember how mediocre Left Behind was with Nicolas Cage? Like it wasn't like there was some bad stuff in it. It was mostly the photoshopped family photo that we laughed about, but it was largely just forgettable. This movie is also, I would argue, in that camp. It's a romantic comedy, and well, you'll see. You'll experience it. I didn't write that many notes. I wrote like a paragraph worth of notes. So
that sounds about right. Mediocre movies generally get like very short notes.
Yeah, because you're just like there's nothing to write about. Like you see where everything is going really early on, and I think the interesting thing will be when we have our discussion. Who do you think was the least likable character in that film? Because I bet it's going to be a healthy competition.
I will definitely keep that in mind while watching at this point then.
Yeah. You might want to make like tally marks next to each character's name every time they do something that you're like, that person is a total shit. And here's the thing, another spoiler. They're not intended by the writers to be considered total shits necessarily. Like that is clearly not the intention of the writers, but that's how it comes across. So yeah, you'll have to check that out. But it's about time for me to go because I've heard my food arrive. Yeah, I'm going to go eat. So I guess we need to peer into the future. So next time on Podcast Without Pretense. That's an excellent point, Iyaz.
Wait, hold on. You didn't tell me you got a hot tub.
Time machine.